I'm joined now by Lord Coe, President of World Athletics, member of the International Olympic Committee and, of course, Chairman of the London 2012 Organising Committee and former Olympic champion. So it goes on. Good to see you, Lord Coe. So, look, COVID cases rising, no spectators, sponsors lying low, a country withdrawing, the Japanese broadly against it. Is this a Games worth going ahead with?
Yes, it is, and we have talked about that before, and I genuinely think so. The systems and the processes in place, they're never going to be perfect, but I think they will deliver a safe and secure Games, both for the athletes and also, crucially, for the communities that are hosting our Games. And look, you know, one of the stats that I've always found rather sobering is that 70% of the athletes only have one bite at this particular cherry. I was lucky, I went to 2 games. And I think we were right to do everything we possibly could to protect those games, and particularly the ecosystem that is sport. We mustn't overlook the fact that these games are in large part the revenue distribution for many Olympic sports that will rely really heavily on it. I do all genuinely think that when we get into the games and the sport really starts in earnest, and track and field is still, you know, over a week away, I do genuinely think people will focus more on the sport and less on some of the challenges around it.
Yeah, but the Olympics are about great sport, yes, but it's also about the community and legacy and about participation of the people in the host city, and none of that is really going to happen, is it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you're right. There aren't going to be fans in the stadium and there aren't any overseas visitors. But this doesn't stop the Games being a manifestation of legacy. And I know from the organising committee and all the municipal authorities in Tokyo that they have very big legacy plans, even off the back of the Games that are by no means usual. And, you know, legacy comes in many, many different ways, many, many different forms. But Japan, I know, wants these Games to be successful. And look, I think we probably, and I think we have to concede here, I think we've done a pretty good job. I'm on the evaluation commission. I work closely with the organising committee. I think they've done a pretty good job in explaining the processes and the protocols to the athletes, the media, the technical officials, and certainly the federations. I think probably there is a gap of understanding about the thousands of hours that have cumulatively taken place in order to make these Games as safe and as secure as possible. And maybe local communities are not as aware as they should be of what has been done,
but there
and particularly to protect them.
Yeah, but there are already cases. I mean, what about the fear of the athletes? Because, I mean, they'll be fearing getting a sort of positive test just before their case, their race, rather. Fear of the locals about, you know, the Olympics being a super spreader. It's going to be a very different Olympics, isn't it? And for the athletes, let's face it, a pretty grim one, really, as an experience.
Mark, we should accept that and accept that. No, I don't think they're going to be grim for the athletes. I think the athletes, and I speak to them all the time, it's my job, they are very, very keen to be there. They understand the strictures, they understand the frustrations, but they also know, as I've said earlier, 70% of them don't get this chance again and they want to take it. And all the other delivery partners, the media particularly, are obviously very keen to be there. And I do make this point broadly that, you know, we shouldn't be coy or naive about the financial realism around these Games. You know, the broadcast revenue that is derived from the Olympic Games in large part keeps Olympic sports afloat. 90% of it goes back into those programs to identify athletes and all the legacy that we want to see. So this is...
So it's too big to cancel, is it? Too big to cancel?
It would have been a cancellation. I've heard people talk about, well, couldn't we have postponed it for another year or so? No. The answer is that if you were going to postpone, that's a cancellation, because the matrix that forms all the events, you know, we've moved our World Championships 1 year down the track. That now collides with the Commonwealth Games, the European Championships. You're into a Beijing Winter Games. You're into a World Cup. So we would, if there was never a question about postponement again, it would have been a cancellation, and we would have gone through to 24 for Paris. And I think that the importance of having these games, and look, maybe we're being slightly judged on a different set of metrics here. Like most people in the UK and around Europe, we've gloried in the European Football Championships. We've seen full stadia. Wimbledon was stuffed to the gunnels.
Do you think there should be spectators at the Olympics? Do you think there should be? They should have allowed some in.
Look, that's a decision that has to be made on the ground, and you have to respect local health authorities. You have to accept government, decisions around that. That's not for us to second guess. Of course, I would have preferred to have seen noisy, passionate fans there. I think some of the events will not be as ebullient as they would have been. The athletes, I have to say, have responded remarkably well. We've seen in track and field, we've obviously seen no diminution to their performances of late. But let me just pick up another point you made. Don't run away with the idea that suddenly 10,500 competitors are all descending on Tokyo. They're not. They're going from the airport to the village. They are going to be tested on a daily basis. There's no sightseeing. There are no karaoke bars. There's no wandering around the city. They're going to be there for only a few days beforehand, depending upon how they progress through their competitions, whether they get through to a medal round or they're bombed out in the first round. They're going to be leaving very shortly afterwards.
Okay.
So I think that given the processes, given the protocols in an inordinately complex situation, I think the organising committee has done a pretty good job. And I do think that when we get into the sport, we will be focusing on that.
All right, look, 20 seconds, literally. You think, do you, that once all the drama and the sport gets underway, the other stuff can be pushed aside, at least temporarily? 20 seconds.
No, I'm not saying it's going to be pushed aside. I'm not saying this is another sort of twist of the news cycle. But look, I've been involved in the delivery of games. I've been a competitor in games. You do see this, under these are difficult circumstances. Everybody accepts that. But I remember before London, people were focusing on all sorts of things in the lead up to the games. As soon as the sport started, it transformed the landscape and people focused on performance.